Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this overview and scrutiny panel meeting for September. The fire alarm procedures are as follows. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices down the main staircase, opposite the lifts in the foyer. Assembly in Hawley Square on the green, and officers will assist you and advise you when it's deemed safe to return to the chamber. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst this meeting is in progress. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and subsequently broadcast on the internet. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? That's a note, so we'll move on. Speaking under 20.1, I've had one request from Councillor Garner, who would like to speak on the item number 11. Any other requests? No. Moving on to public speaking, I've had two requests of public speaking, both on item 11, and we'll call those out as we get there. Okay, moving on to item number 1, the apologies for absence. I've had one apology, and that's from Councillor Faruqi. Any other apologies? Yes, Alan.
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Packman.
Thanks, Alan. Item number 2, the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, that's a no. Item number 3 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of August 2025. To approve the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Panel meeting held on the 19th of August 2025, a copy is attached to the agenda pack. I'd like a proposer, please. Sorry. Councillor Pritchard, I do apologise. And a seconder. Councillor Austin, and you're a seconder. Do we all agree?
No.
Oh, sorry, you've got something.
Can I just
yes,
ask,
absolutely.
I did raise some query as to whether we could get some information on the outcome of previous reviews that the committee has done, and I don't see that anywhere in the minutes. I know Mr Hughes did agree that officers would do that, but I don't see it in the minutes. I'm wondering if we could add that, please. Thank you.
It should be in the work programme, if you have a look.
It might be, it's very well hidden if it is. I couldn't see it, but thank you.
That's the next item, so we can have a quick look. So do all members agree on those minutes? And that's yes, thank you. Item number 4 is the review of the overview scrutiny work programme for 25-26. And Councillor Austin's got a question on that. So let's have a look. Are we all looking at that? Yep. And Nick's showing me it is on there.
Somebody point me in the direction. I'm sorry, I can't see it.
As an action where the date, where they've got the whole list and the dates, and it's got the 14th of October. So that's for next month.
It's in Annex 1.
Annex 1.
My machine is now frozen, so yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so one thing I was going to ask members was about future cabinet member presentations, because we haven't had one for some time, and the ones we were going to have, then they got covered by officer presentations. So I just need some ideas, and I did have a chat with a couple of members, and I think we came up with a couple of ideas. Was asking Councillor Alban, I think we had that one before, to ask him about how it's gone this summer with the waste and cleansing service. Are we all happy with to ask him? Lots of nodding going on. And the second one was to ask Councillor Christian Bright, to ask him to come in and ask about his views on how the tourism's gone this year. Now he's been in post for several months. Are we all happy with that one, Councillor Davis?
It's been a while. Just a thought while we're talking forward on this as well. I wonder if we could get further updates on the port itself, given that the change of direction away from, so we need to know what's happening, because time's going by. So an update on the Port and Harbour from whoever is holding the portfolio this week. The other thing I'd like to recommend, and sorry, I'm not trying to ambush here, but it's it's very fresh. We have a situation where integration doesn't seem to be a word that their local transport providers have any understanding of, as experienced. For example, you cannot get from Ramsgate to Canterbury Hospital without either travelling for half an hour, 40 minutes the wrong direction, changing a bus, then spending, it's a two and a half hour journey to get from Ramsgate to Canterbury Hospital by bus, 20 minutes by train with no bus service from Canterbury West to the hospital or anything, It's lunacy. Then there's the general failings of service around, and yet again we've had the Joint Transportation Board cancelled due to paucity of business. I think, you know, enough is enough, and a lot of this is down to KCC's attitude towards that committee and whether their officers attend and all the rest of it. And I think we should be scrutinising the actual purpose of having a Joint Transportation Committee and what its failings are, because at the moment there's seemingly many.
Thank you. Lots to dissect there. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention about the port and just for the panel's consideration that the last Cabinet report in June committed to bringing another report back to Cabinet in the autumn. So there is an update on the port coming. So I just thought I'd mention that for the panel's consideration.
Thanks, Mike. Can we pin you down to a month or autumn? I mean, we're in autumn.
Yeah, I think it's likely to be late autumn, which could be December.
Winter. Councillor Scovey.
I was going to say, as per Councillor Davies' mention of Cabinet presentation, that might be a good topic for a future working group, because I think there's quite a few members concerned about accessibility and links or transport links around Thanet. I don't think it's something the JTB can really pick up. They're sort of yellow lines and parking, and KCC's sort of the upper transport tier here, but there might be some useful stuff that we can put forward.
If we can all work collaboratively on getting an effective answer to that, then I think that's excellent.
Yeah, I think there's a form that we've got to complete, isn't there? So it might be worth, Councillor Davies, if you want to do that. I'm sure you'll get support from, sounded like, from a few members.
There you go. And picking up on the other bit, I mean, I'll take on board that Mike's going to do the report on the Port and Harbour. Another idea was to ask Councillor Everett to come in and talk about corporate plan and his vision for the last 2 years of this term, or the last 2 years of this council. So we're happy with that. So I will ask Councillor Everett, maybe for January, maybe for that one. Okay, we okay with that? All agree? Excellent. Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is the Tackling Poverty Scrutiny Review, Terms of Reference and Work Programme. David, anything to tell us?
Yes, our subgroup looking at poverty, with a lot of help from Emily, we've managed to put together a Terms of Reference and a Work Programme, which you've all received, hopefully to approve so that we can start work.
Thank you. So we're asked to endorse that approach for the scrutiny review, and Councillor Scovey.
Sorry, I had a recommendation. There's a bit of a bugbear of mine. I think I've raised it a couple of times, but now we're at the point of having terms of reference. It was around the output report. There's nothing wrong with the last 2 or 3 that we've done, but obviously there was a lot of recommendations, and I feel we should get sharper on that, because I think, I've mentioned this before, you're asking officers who are already dealing with, you know, lots of different committees making recommendations, auditors, as well as all sort of internal management stuff, and giving them a list of, you know, 20, 30 other recommendations just makes it even harder. I think we should be looking to have a small number of really clear recommendations, you know, half a dozen, and then maybe we should have a series of low-hanging fruit, and we should absolutely make sure that this comes at 0 cost. So anything that we're talking about that costs substantial money, I just think it's not realistic when you're looking at the budget situation. So fully support, Councillor Green, what you've put together, and sounds like it's going to be an interesting topic, but I think the output's got to be really focused, otherwise we're just creating stuff that we all sort of go, is nice, but the reality is that, you know, we're a small district council with limited budgets.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the mantra of these scrutiny reviews have always been, with the recommendations, that they are cost neutral, and Councillor Bridge, Councillor Austin and myself, we've all been a part of that, and we've always had that thought when we're doing recommendations. Councillor Austin, you want to come?
I wanted to agree with Councillor Scobie as far as the supporting the report is concerned and the terms of reference, and yes, to have some focused recommendations. I've also got just a little concern about some terminology. There's some references to community centres in some of the documentation where I think it might be helpful to have community organisations, because community centres is often taken to mean something that's a building, whereas we have a lot of excellent organisations that don't necessarily operate out of a building, some of whom we worked with on the previous review that I was involved in. So I'm wondering if we could just do a little bit of a find and replace there in some of the documentation to clarify that, please. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that's what you meant, wasn't it, David?
No, we did mean buildings, I think, but happy to take that on board.
And timescales, David? Are we looking? It's in your report, David, apparently.
From memory, I think it was.
It was a prompt, but yeah, January. I think we're looking at January. Okay, so are we all happy with that? We all happy with that? Those terms of reference. We have a proposer for those terms of reference. I think David's going to propose them, and we're all going to second them. I think Councillor Davis, and we all agree on those. Yeah. Perfect. Right. Moving on. I am going to just move things around slightly because I know we've got an officer that needs to get away, so I'm going to move swiftly on to item number 8, the Tenant and Leaseholder Service Annual Reports, and I call on Sally to introduce the report.
Thank you, and thank you for moving me up the agenda. So my annual reports, every year the Regulator for Social Housing requires all social housing providers to produce a report for its tenants. This year's report provides information on how council tenants and leaseholder services spend money on different service areas, for example, responsive repairs and planned maintenance, and provides performance information and how we are working with residents to improve the services or to maintain landlord compliance. The work the team does with engaged residents is very important, and this report really highlights the input from residents and how they do improve the service. And it's also really pleasing to see how our residents have contributed to the report in the forward and comments throughout. Following the introduction of the Social Housing Regulation Act 2023, it was a requirement for us now to produce an annual complaints performance and service improvement report, and for this also to be published. This report gives information on the complaints received throughout the year, themes and trends identified through complaints, lessons learnt, and the improvements that are made from those lessons learnt. I will happy to take any questions on the reports. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Members, over to you. Whoosh. No one? All happy with that? Okay, so the overview of Scrutiny Panel is asked to review and note the reports, so we're all going to note them, and it says I need a proposer for those reports, Councillor Davis, and the second, Councillor Green. All agree? Thank you. Okay, moving on swiftly.
Could I ask one question, Chair?
Yes, certainly.
Can we ask the officer who was highly commended in the category of Innovator of the Year, what was his innovation, please?
I can't remember, I'm sorry, but I will let you know, Tricia, don't worry.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, the Tenant and Leaseholder Service Performance, Q1. Call on Sally again to introduce the report.
Thank you. So presenting tonight are the performance reports for Q1. The operational performance for the tenant and leaseholder services remains steady. Q1 saw the start of the new partnering repairs contract. As the contract was run by Mears, there was no outward change to how residents access the service, and the KPIs continue to show strong performance. But obviously in the background, changes have been made to improve customer satisfaction and drive efficiencies. The team is still unable to hit a void target time of 33 days, and this is due to the condition that many voids are returned to us. Some research has been carried out and has told us that nationally the average void turnaround time at this point is 76 days. Therefore, the team are going to spend some time in Q2 realigning the target to something that is more reflective of the current environment. Arrears performance has improved again, but not at the rate seen as last financial year. At the end of the quarter at 2.56, we will see smaller increments of performance now. The capital programme is progressing as expected, with 3 large projects that have previously been delayed starting, and that includes Churchfields and Royal Crescent. The cyclical programmes have started and are progressing as we expect. The tower block project is still delayed by the building safety regulator, but activity can now be seen at Trove and Kennedy, where scaffolding is going up around the building so that the external wall insulation can be stripped. Compliance performance is strong, with gas remaining at 100%, and compliance in Q1 for electrical safety has increased to 98.58. Our fire risk assessment actions continue to be closely monitored, and we closed out 138 actions in Q1. There's still a substantial amount overdue. Some changes have been made to the compliance team through the recent tenant and leaseholder services restructure to introduce 2 new posts to the team. These new posts are in response to new legislation regarding structural and fire safety that have put an extra burden on the team, and there will be a strong focus on closing out FRA actions. New dashboards have been introduced in this quarter, and they are to show our compliance position on the consumer standards. The consumer standards were reviewed and we're going forward so that everyone has a good high-level overview of our performance and where we are in regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Members, any questions for Sally? Councillor Davis?
I think I just want to comment that, and thank you for addressing the fact that there's always room for improvement, but I think one of the things that's telling to me from the report is the tenant satisfaction that has increased almost across the board. And that's a really good test of the engagement with those tenants, because, and particularly because previous performance a few years ago was absolutely horrendous, and so we've rebuilt that, deserves recognition. So I think, although there's obviously the compliance issues which we've discussed previously, and that's not going to happen overnight, but it's in progress. But I'd like to congratulate the department for the fact that their relationship with the tenants has improved. Therefore, whatever the challenges of remaining compliant, the key relationship is good, and there's obviously something very good happening there. So,
excellent. Anybody else?
I know we met, and then we had the meeting at Harbour Towers, and there remained some dissatisfaction amongst leaseholders. Is there any way we could introduce leaseholder satisfaction performance in the? I don't know how many leaseholders we have. There seems to be a significant number in Harbour Towers, or at least enough to warrant considering their how they feel about how things are done to them or done with them.
Thank you. We've got about 350 leaseholders. Can I take your suggestion away and give it some thought? Yeah, you can. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're asked to review and note those reports. Do I have a proposal for those? Councillor Austin and a second of Councillor Davis. All agree? Thank you very much. I'm just going to move the agenda around slightly once again, because I know we've got members of the public here, so we're going to move on to item number 11, which is...
I'm going to time them on my phone, by the way, so they've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. The asset management disposal of surplus property. I'll call on Andrea to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This report presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Panel requires noting and commenting on the recommendation given to Cabinet to dispose of 2 surplus properties, Tivoli Road, Margate and Piedmont Park Depot at Broadstairs. The report also addresses the proposed community asset transfer of the Broadstairs War Memorial to the Broadstairs and St Peters Town Council. Disposing of these assets is a key part of the Council's financial and budgetary strategy, and it helps the Council meet its annual target of generating 1.25 million of capital receipts. These funds are essential for the approved capital programme, and failing to raise them could impact operational buildings and the delivery of statutory services. The Council owns a large portfolio of assets, and this is seeking to utilise sale proceeds generated from assets that are no longer needed and invest into assets that are still critical for the councils and its communities. The disposals are recommended because the sites are vacant, either in disrepair or are incurring ongoing costs for the council, such as maintenance, security and responsive repairs. The Council's acquisition and disposal policy, which was adopted by Cabinet in 2024, requires a transparent and fair disposal process and mandates obtaining best value for assets as per the Section 123 of the Local Government Act 1972. This policy also states that the Council should seek planning permission for alternative uses to maximise the site value prior to marketing. In the case of Piermont Park Depot, the Council followed this policy exactly by submitting an outline planning application for a small residential scheme, which was believed to offer the greatest potential value. However, the application was rejected by the Planning Committee since seeking further planning consent is no longer considerable a valid option for the Council. It is now recommended that the Council proceeds with disposing of the site as is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so we have two members of the public who would like to speak this evening. I've got Miss Bailey first. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking as a Viking Ward resident and in relation to the Piermont Park Depot disposal. So, as far as I'm concerned, there is a fundamental impediment to the sale of the Piermont Park Depot in that it lacks its own private access. To address this, the Council is also proposing to sell the access road. This access road to the depot is within the curtilage of the public park and is designated as open space under Policy 32 of the Thanet local plan. So to sell it off, in my opinion, and that of others, is just wrong, seems wrong to me, both ethically and legally. Policy 32 says, proposals resulting in the loss of protected open space through a change of use will only be permitted if there is no material harm to the visual or recreational amenity of the area. This access road in the past was used very infrequently during weekday working hours with council operatives and vehicles covered by council insurances and safeguards. If the depot were to be disposed of to a private business, we have no idea and no control over how busy or noisy the access road would become. It would undoubtedly impinge on the safety and enjoyment of park users and materially affect the quality of this tranquil space. Allowing private access is therefore not consistent with the aims of the open space policy. The Town and Country Planning Act of 1990 provides protection for land designated as open space, and local councils are responsible for ensuring that such land is maintained for public benefit. The Local Government Acts 1972 and 1988 require that councils adhere to specific rules when disposing of land. Permitting private access across protected open space constitutes a change of use and therefore requires public consultation and a change of designation. And as the open space designation is an embedded policy in the local plan, that may even require a review of the plan itself. Local authorities also need to factor in public interest before proceeding with any sale and are required to notify community groups of their intention to dispose of public assets, allowing them to bid and raise funds to acquire the land through a community asset transfer. I would urge the committee, therefore, to recommend that Cabinet reconsider this disposal and instead explore the possibility of transferring the disused depot back to Broadstairs Town Council for community use as at option 3 of this report, or at the very least, recommend the exclusion of the access road from the proposed disposal as outlined in option 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bailey. And the second member of the public is Mr Darg.
Thank you, Chair. I speak for the Friends of Piermont Park Community Group. This proposal is linked to planning application OLTH 2537 recently refused by TDC's own planning committee. The land in question is a small brownfield island site and an adjacent sizable portion of protected parkland. The brownfield site, as we've heard, has no access from the private highway, from the public highway. Its value is therefore minimal. The only access route is via protected parkland, which cannot be sold as that would breach TDC's acquisitions and disposal policy, TDC's corporate plan, priority 3, and TDC's local plan, policies SP32, QD02 and TP02. There has been no formal public consultation regarding the disposal of the protected parkland or any planning application regarding the change of use to a private road. This mirrors closely the stated case of RV Shropshire 2023, where the UK Supreme Court ruled the local authority had not followed due diligence and correct consultation processes for the disposal of public land, resulting in that land being reinstated with significant costs incurred by that local authority and the developer. As no part of this disposal process has been fair and transparent, a formal complaint is also being considered by this community group. We also comment on the TDC Equality Impact Assessment provided to panel members as follows. Piermont Park has a very different legal status to the depot site. The loss of the parkland would have a hugely negative impact upon all the commercial businesses and public groups that use the park and would result in the destruction of many mature shrubs, hedges and trees. This attempt to sell parkland could be seen as a devious attempt to bypass the lawful decision of TDC's planning committee by facilitating an appeal through a third party, as TDC cannot appeal its own decision. That in itself does not foster good community relations. With regard to the asset management disposal report, Tivoli Road and Piermont Park are fundamentally different and must be considered separately. The access road within Piermont Park cannot be disposed of for reasons already given, and we believe that all utilities have been cut off, no maintenance has been done at the site since it was closed, so the costs are negligible. Any future residential development would result in a significant increase in risk of vehicle versus pedestrian conflict within the park, and there is a significant reputational risk to TDC created by the intention to sell public parkland and the manner in which this is being conducted. However, Section 123 of the LGA Act 72 gives consent for less than best consideration disposals if that promotes or improves social or environmental well-being, and this gives a clear opportunity, we believe, for a community asset transfer of the depot site, either to Broadstairs Council or any number of interested community groups that could benefit from the opportunity, and that would also remove any need to sell or repurpose any part of the protected parkland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dogg. Okay, speaking under 20.1, I've got Councillor Garner.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd like to thank Rob and Ruth for coming along tonight and expressing their opinion, which is felt by quite a large number of people in the town, especially around that area. I'll try not to cover too much of what they've said, but I'll be focusing on the proposal to dispose of the depot. Although I would like to say before that, I'm pleased that one of the other assets that has been discussed in the paper, the War Memorial, is going to be transferred to the Town Council. As stated, the depot was originally used and owned by Broadstairs and St Peter's Urban Borough Council until the last government reorganisation in 1974, when, like a number of other Broadstairs and other areas assets, it was transferred, along with Piermont Park, to Thanet District Council, who used the depot until about 8 years ago, since when it has fallen into a state of disrepair. It seems, TDC have been considering the disposal of the depot for a while now, hence the recent application to build on the site to enable a sale with planning permission. That application was recently refused for a number of reasons, which mainly relate to the access to the site. And as has been stated, while the depot itself may indeed be a brownfield site, it is a brownfield oasis surrounded by either private properties or Piermont Park, a park that is protected in our local plan. The only way to access it is down that single track road in the aforementioned protected park. The decision to refuse permission to build on the site, made by TDC's planning committee, cannot, as I understand it, be appealed by the applicant, because TDC would be appealing against the decision that they made. A decision to now sell the depot, along with the access section of the protected park, which may make it easier for a purchaser to appeal the TDC's planning decision, is, in my opinion, wrong on a number of different levels. As the report before you states, there are a number of options available that Cabinet could consider, and I would ask that you recommend that they do consider option 3, to consider a community use. The Town Council have previously expressed an interest in taking on the site to use it for the purpose it was originally intended. The Town Council now have a team of their own gardeners who are in need of a base, and they also have contacts with a number of Broadstairs-based community groups who have also expressed an interest in utilising the site. So please consider making this recommendation to the Cabinet. With local government reorganisation on the horizon, there is likely to be a need for assets like this when town councils take on more responsibilities, and it would be a shame for it to be sold off to a private developer and lost to Broadstairs and wider community forever, in the same way that it would be a shame for the Pie Factory building and the Sarah Thorne Theatre and Pottery building to be sold by KCC. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Okay, members, we've heard from the officer, members of the public and a ward councillor. Councillor Bright, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm just interested to find out what the current vacant property cost is to the council and what the maintenance costs are, and also what the predicted value of this asset actually is, and if we were to sell it, how much spending power that would give us. I'm very concerned about the inclusion of the access road in the sale of the site. Are we legally able to dispose of this road if it's currently used by park users and considered to be common land? Don't we have a duty to retain this space for the enjoyment of the public? Can you explain more about the preferred disposal method for the site? I understand that the plan is for it to go out on the open market, but would it be possible to consider a negotiated, if we do decide to sell it, would it be possible to consider a negotiated tender instead to enable the council to specify that any proposal for the land must deliver social, economic or environmental benefits to the community? Is it possible to also explore the option of leasing the land to a community group instead before we decide to sell it? Thank you.
Chair, point of order, just before we go into it. I don't disagree with any of the questions that Councillor Bright said, but as we're talking about TDC and an asset that Broadstairs Town Council is interested in, is it appropriate for Broadstairs Town Councillors to be part of the debate and asking questions around the price? Has that been discussed? Obviously value yours and Councillor Garner's input. I just want to make sure we're not getting into an area that's a little bit grey, because if Broadstairs Town Council's got an interest and wants to do this, I'm not sure asking about the price. Yeah, no, I'm not saying, but you're obviously a Broadstairs Town Council, so you've got two roles here.
Can I just ask Councillor Garner, has this ever been discussed at a council meeting? At a town council meeting? A town council meeting?
Yes.
Can I just say, this actually came up at our town forum on Monday, and I can't actually remember having a conversation at our town council meeting or making any proposal at all to take on the depot. So as a town councillor, I don't actually, but I'm speaking as someone who wants to give the option to a community group. I'm not as a town councillor who's interested in taking it on as a town councillor. I don't actually remember having that conversation. We've made no formal proposal.
Can I just come back to what was the discussions at the town council?
Well, if you mean what sort? I mean, people discuss things at town council.
Yeah,
has there been a formal motion about it? No.
No. Okay. Is there any Broadstairs Town Councillors apart from yourself on this committee? can you declare your interest now?
Yeah, I can declare my interest that I am a town councillor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Back over to Andrew.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try to recollect the order of the questions. So I think the first question was around maintenance costs and ongoing costs for the site. So I take it specifically just Piermont that the site costs are asked about. The Tivoli ones are already listed in the report. The maintenance for Piermont Park, I've only got a reactive line here, which is in excess of £11,000, which was earlier this year, following a water leak on the access road that is being discussed tonight, which was due to a fault at a meter point, which resulted in a repair or disconnection of the meter to stop the leak of in excess of £3,000, and then a subsequent payment to Brorsted and St Peter's Town Council of £8,000 to cover the loss of water that they suffered and the cost they had to pay to Business Stream to compensate for the loss of water. So as of to date, I only have that reactive line in terms of maintenance. But we do carry the liability of any other incidents happening and site security and site visits under our insurance policy. Could you remind me of the second and third questions?
Yeah, so it's what is the estimated value of this asset, and also are we legally able to dispose of this road as it's currently used by park users? It's part of the park.
Yes, of course. The market value would be established during the marketing period. The value of the land will be that value between a willing seller and a willing purchaser. So at this point in time, I don't have a value that I'm able to share because the value will be decided during the marketing exercise when the seller tells us how much they're willing to pay for the site. We've got an indication, but that's for internal purposes only, just so we have an idea. In terms of the access road, yes, the access road, there's an option in the paper already, I believe it's option number 4, to vary the demise that's being sold. However, the recommendation as it stands at the moment is to transfer the ownership of the access road. We're not saying to change the use of the access road or stop members of the public accessing it. We are just simply saying the owner of the access road can change hands. There's nothing in the legislation that would stop private roads from changing hands. What will happen in the case that the council decides to retain the access road and give rights of way to a new potential owner? What will happen then, the new owner will have the dominant tenement, which means that the depot site, not the access road, they will benefit of the right of way over the access road, and the council will remain responsible for all repairs and maintenance to the access road on to the benefit of the new owner of the depot. We then become the servient tenement where we are burdened by the right of way, and we as the owner of the land must allow the dominant tenement holder to pass and repass for the property. So both options are still on the table. The preferred option in the report is, as it states, to go with the access road because it protects the council from maintaining the rights of way to a new owner. The report also stipulates that we will be only selling this, retaining rights of way for the public and council workers in perpetuity, uninterrupted access to pass and repass to everybody. So we're not stopping anyone accessing the road as it stands.
The other question as well was about the preferred disposal method for the site. It's going out on the open market, but is there any way that there could be a negotiated tender instead, so we can stipulate that it only goes to people that are going to give it community value? Thank you.
The disposal method has not been set out yet for any of the two assets that are subject to disposals tonight. There's for there's multiple ways you can dispose of something. You can go via auction, private treaty, formal tender and informal tender. All options are possible. We haven't decided on one or another.
Councillor Davis next.
Really am out of practice with that. It's a tricky one, this, because it's a brownfield site, it's an infill site, and using it would stop development of greenfield. However, it's been refused, and that was the position. Looking at the reasons for a refusal, I understand them, because and it comes back to this ransom strip, effectively, which it's become the access road. Now, it's been described as an access road and as an open space, and it can't be both. If it's an access road, then with public access, then that's what it is. And I think we need to understand how long it's been established and used as that. Because although it's adjacent to the parkland itself, if it's established as an access road, which would predate any consideration, that has to be considered. Because effectively, if you landlock it, and I can hear there's comments being made, and I want people to hear me out on this, but if you landlock it, it has no value. If it has access allowed, and I understand exactly what Ms. Plant's saying about disposal rather than retaining responsibility with other people having rights, it can have conditions put on the disposal that protect its future use. However, if planning is deemed not to be possible on there for these purposes, it makes it effectively arable land, which probably has a value of about £10,000 to £15,000 an acre at the moment, and this is 0.37 of an acre. So I'm going to propose that this hasn't got the same impact, although it's got the liability cost, obviously. Disposal of this wouldn't have as big an impact as Tivoli, and obviously, and the problem is we've got 3 disposals bundled under one item here. So what I would suggest is that we make a recommendation that the War Memorial passes, that Tivoli is disposed of, and given that it's asbestos and health and safety related and everything, that's, you know, there's no question. But perhaps withdraw this from disposal whilst there's clarification on the use of that road and how that affects the actual outcome, because I don't think 0.37 an acre is going to make or break the future of this, and therefore if we sit on it for now and review what is going on, it also gives the community groups perhaps chance, even though it's not listed as an asset of community value, but it gives them that same opportunity to perhaps put their own bids together, which can include social value and everything, as Councillor Bright said. So, as I say, I'm sorry if that sounds convoluted, but it's, as I say, it's a shame that we can't use it as brownfield. But on the other hand, if not, it needs that legal clarification. Otherwise, there's very little gain. And the only people that would probably gain from getting it would be people that wanted to use it as allotments or for community purposes, which I personally think is probably a good idea. But as I say, maybe that's our best proposal at this point, is to suggest to Cabinet that they approve the other 2 items and treat this separately. Sorry, go on.
We'll go around the panel and then we'll come back to recommendations at the end. We'll work our way through them. Councillor Green.
Could I ask, has the council had any discussions at all with Broadstairs Town Council around this land regarding community asset transfer? And is there any reason why they shouldn't do that? Any legal reason?
Yes, so when we initially looked at potentially pursuing a planning application, we presented some of our initial designs with Broadstairs and St Peters Town Council. So in the interest of transparency and communication, we spoke to them. However, having a discussion around the disposal that hasn't yet been decided to go forward as a disposal, that conversation has not happened. The community asset transfer is an option in the paper, but is not the recommended option because it breaches section 123 of the Local Government Act. It goes back to that kind of value of land, and there is the land is brownfield and does have a considerable value, subject that is able to be unlocked.
Councillor Scobie.
Okay. Yeah, this is a tricky one, because if you zoom in on this as in isolation, there are question marks around it, but this isn't a decision in isolation. And the wider context on this is that we're a district council that has a lot of assets, most of which need funding, and we have to make really difficult decisions. We've been lucky in a way that we've managed to access some national government funding, which is going to bring in some of our larger assets in parts of Thanet. But the reality is that we have to sell assets to invest in the assets we've got at the moment. That's unfortunately the situation that local government's in. So I think it's worth going through some of these points and saying, can we simply just do nothing? Well, the reality is, if